This is my 1968 VE Valiant and we're going to drift it. But before we do that, we've got to bring the steering and the suspension out of the Stone Age. And that's where this R31 front cut comes in. We're going to take the strut towers, we're going to take the K-frame, we're going to take all the suspension and we're going to transplant it into this. It's going to be a bit of work. I've never done it before, but let's go. Now, before we can start just cutting and shutting and ripping everything out and grafting all of that front end in, I've got to work out where the center point of the wheel is on the guard. So that way I can work out where I position the strut towers off of that onto here so that everything lines up and I don't end up with a wheel all the way forward or all the way back. Now, the beauty of the new front end is it's got caster arms, so I can shift the wheels forward or backwards depending on how I want it set up. And it does give me a little bit of forgiveness in whether or not I have this perfectly straight. So I've got a level, I've got a texter, and I'm going to do it the most primitive way. That's one done. Now let's do the other. All right, now that we've marked out the center bearing to the guard, or the inner guard I should say, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through with my tape measure and I'm going to check from the firewall to where I've got that line on both sides and see if they're the same. So let's go. So on this side, we've got, give or take, 380 mil. And on this side, we've got 370. Now, what I was going to do anyway is I was going to position them more forward. So we're going to find the same measurement for both. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to go with 380 on both. That one's at 380, this one's at 370. I'm going to change this one to 380 and leave it at that. It's about 10 mil forward. Now from that point anyway, I was going to bring the front strut towers about 15 mil further forward because that gives us a little bit more front caster, which means then we'll get better self-steer. So now that we've got that marked out, we know where that point is. You start pulling the whole front end apart. Best part about having a forklift is you don't need to use a jack. So a bit high, come back down. All right. Now let's get something under it to support the weight. Now that we've got it up, I'll start ripping off all these rusty old bolts, and I'm probably going to need my impactor for this one. So luckily, I've got a big torque impactor. I'm going to get it over most of these bolts and I'm going to loosen them right off and get this whole front end taken out, including all the torsion bars, but I'm going to leave the steering in because I'm going to graft that steering into the new steering rack. Wow, they don't want to come off. I think we may have to use a shorter one because that one's probably going to break. I think it's safe to say these wheels are rusted on. No, apparently they're reverse thread. Who knew? Not me. Note to self, Valiants are reverse thread on the passenger side. Holy shit. I think there might be a lot living in that. Jesus Christ. Is there anything actually living in there? It wouldn't actually appear to be. No, I don't think there's anything living in there. That's insane, the amount of cobwebs in this thing. Wow, that's nuts. That's nutty. Now, I've never pulled apart a front end on one of these before, so I'm just gonna be flying by the seat of my pants on this one. All right guys, so I got the front wheel off, but as I've started to take stuff off, this stuff is ridiculously hard to get off. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to mark out with this piece of flat plastic here. I'm going to mark my lines down the internal parts of the guards, and I'm going to get my plasma cutter out and I'm just going to start cutting everything out because I really can't be bothered trying to unbolt all these things that don't want to come off anyway. So let's just cut them off because we don't need them regardless.
this whole process took so much longer than I was expecting it to. I was expecting this to come apart pretty easily, but trying to get the plasma cutter into some of these little spots and trying to get the grinder in there was so hard. In the end, I ended up just cutting off as much as I could so that I could get access to other bits. I even got the reciprocating saw out, not that it did that much, and then I just started hitting some stuff with hammers to try and bend them or get them out of the way so that I could get into other sections. Even you notice I cut out some squares and then I folded in some of the sheet metal just so that I could access other bits, so that I could cut other bits out. It took probably about 3 or 4 hours to do all of this, and it was an absolute pain in the ass.
Alright guys, so while I've been working on this, I've discovered that there's a big problem with one of the chassis rails here. Where I suppose the power steering unit, or it's not even power steering, where the steering unit has mounted to on the chassis, I'm guessing this thing's had a front hit at some point and it's crumpled some of the chassis rail here, because it's definitely crumpled some of the body line up here. And it hasn't been fixed properly. So the rust is pretty much all the way through the bottom. They've attempted to weld on all the brackets that hold the steering mechanism in place so that it would, I'm assuming, hold the chassis rail together, but it obviously hasn't worked. So now what I'm going to probably have to do is, this side is actually about 10 mil higher than the other side, probably from that hit that I had one day. I'm going to have to chop all of this out and then shift it down 10 mil anyway so it lines up the other side, and then I'll probably have to re-brace all this. But I'm lucky I'm actually welding in the front and the chassis rails from the R31 front end, because they're going to end up on the inside, and I'm going to have to chop out some of this anyway and then tube frame some of it. So it's not the end of the world, but it's just another headache that I didn't want to have to really deal with. Alright guys, so we've cut out a large section of this box, and the rust is way worse than I thought it was going to be. So there is rust pretty well everywhere. So we're probably going to have to remove the entire box, and then I'll just have to weld in some tube framing to replace it. Joys. Alright guys, well I guess that's going to be it for now. The rust is so bad that I'm now going to have to chop out everything. I have actually chopped out the front section just to make sure that where my strut towers are going to go and everything fits. But I'm going to have to cut back a lot further on this, because I'm going to have to cut the rusted parts right out, and then I'll mimic the same on the other side, so then I can tube frame it from that point equally on both sides. Unfortunately, this is all I can do for now, because I need to set up my bender and my notcher. And I don't have enough room in my workshop, so I'm going to have to build another shed, which isn't a bad thing. Slab's already down. I've just got to get the materials and put this shed up. So stay tuned, don't forget to like and subscribe, and next video will probably be us putting the shed up. Peace.